Please forgive my stuffiness. I've got really bad allergies at the moment, but I wanted to do this review while I felt like doing it, and if I don't do it now, I'm not going to get around to it. It's pretty amazing how many thrash bands I like came out with albums last year. Pretty much every band except Slayer and Overkill that I listened to that does thrash metal came out with something last year. And Slayer had released something at the end of 2015. And here in February of 2017, Overkill released their latest album, The Grinding Wheel. Woo. My primary familiarity with Overkill's music, and I've heard all of their albums, comes from their more recent albums, Electric Age, White Devil Armory, and now starting to be this album. I just have not found the time to go back and really give each of their old albums proper listens, and they do have a bunch of them. And they have plenty of songs that I really like off of those older albums. Hello from the Gutter, Thunderhead, being a couple of them that come to mind right away. But just a lack of time to really go back and listen to those albums, plus an abundance of music that I need to give proper listens to. It's just meant that I have not really been able to listen to as much of their stuff as I really want to, which is unfortunate. This album will definitely have a lot of the same old for Overkill. I've heard this band described as the AC/DC of metal. In some ways, I can kind of understand that comparison. They have developed a sameness over the last several albums, maybe decade and a half. I'm honestly not really sure. But I think they do throw in a few new elements in this album, or just elements that they haven't used in a long time. So to me, this album doesn't seem completely run of the mill, same old, although there is definitely that aspect of it as well. And I do appreciate the new elements that they add into here. The songwriting is also pretty strong. So even if the style at times is same old, I feel like the songwriting is strong enough to where it still ends up becoming an enjoyable album to listen to. Spoiler alert, I do like this album. I really enjoy the production on this album. The guitars sound great, the vocals sound great. I really like the sharpness of the drums. I think they sound really good, especially the bass drums. Sound pretty awesome. And then the bass you can actually hear, which is pretty impressive. I know a lot of people bitch about that. A lot of times I don't really care, but I'm just so used to not hearing the bass that I never really notice or care about the bass. But I can actually hear it in this album, and it's kind of cool to actually hear that. And it's not played poorly, and there are some moments that I do enjoy in the bass work on this album. In addition to the bass, everyone else does their job solidly as well. The vocalist has his own unique style, which he continues, and he mixes things up, including some melodic vocals here and there, which are kind of cool. The guitar players do their job nicely, and there are some moments with some pretty solid guitar solos and some really good guitar riffs. And the drummer also does a very nice job, so overall, everybody does their job nicely. This album also gets a bit more progressive, which is interesting. There are a few 7-minute tracks and a few 6-minute tracks, which I'm sure isn't uncommon for typical Overkill. But it's kind of cool to hear that they take the verse chorus format and build on it a little bit more with some more interesting bridges and intros and different segments of these songs just to keep them from being same old, which is pretty nice. The album opens with Mean Green Killing Machine, a song titled with attitude, which is very fitting for an Overkill album. The drums in the intro are pretty cool and help build the song nicely. The song has kind of a typical up-tempo Overkill pace. The verses and chorus are pretty typical, but they're very solid as well. And if you like modern Overkill, you'll definitely like this track. Where it stands out a little bit more is in the bridge to the song, which has more of a groovy side to it. Well, it's pretty cool. It's got a decent solo, and it's just a solid opening track. Goddamn Trouble is next, and it's a typical fast-paced, thrashy Overkill song. There's not really a whole lot special to say about it, but it's written well enough, and it's enjoyable. And if you like other songs of the style, you'll probably like this one as well. Our finest hour is next, and this is yet another fast-paced Overkill typical song for modern era Overkill. I kind of think of Electric Rattlesnake a little bit when I hear this song, although I think it's slightly slower than that. It's a very solid track. I like the chorus a lot. It's just a pretty cool song. There's not a whole lot that stands out about it either, but it is still quite good. Shine On is next, and this is a slower paced song for Overkill standards, but it's still pretty up tempo. I really like the guitar riff in the verses. I think that's done really well, and the verses themselves are pretty good. It's got a nice pacing to it. The chorus is decent enough, but some of the vocals in the background, and I'm having trouble remembering exactly what they say. I think it said like "come on" or something like that. Can get a little annoying, but for the most part, I can overlook that. And then it's got an actual melodic bridge to the song, which is pretty cool. It's definitely different for Overkill, and I appreciate that. The Long Road is next, and the first thing I noticed about this song is the intro reminds me of the intro to Megadeth's Countdown to Extinction. It has kind of an interesting long build up to the actual song. Probably takes about a minute or so. But once the song gets going, it's kind of another typical thrashy Overkill song. It's a pretty decent track. I don't like it as much as I do the first four songs on this album, but it is still a solid track. It's just pretty typical, and there's not a whole lot to say about it. Let's All Go to Hades is the next song, and whenever I hear this song, I think of God of War. Last year, I played all of the God of War games for my other channel for the first time. I'd never played either of those games, and so when I heard this song, I immediately thought of that franchise. It starts off slow, but builds to be a faster song. This song has a very different feel to it. I don't really know how to describe it. It's just, I would like to see Overkill grow more. And this song seems to be, in a way, kind of how I want them to do that. Like, it's still a fast paced, I don't know if I would say it's a thrashy song necessarily, but it's still a heavy metal song. It's still fast paced. It's still within their style. But it has a little bit different melody to it, which I really like. It's not, or at least it doesn't feel like it's using the same stuff over and over again. And this is easily my favorite song on the album. What I thought of as the chorus, the Let's All Go to Hades part, I'm not sure if that's really a chorus or if it's just a couple different verses. I can't really tell if, I don't know, it kind of seems like it could be a chorus, but the song doesn't seem structured like a verse, chorus sort of way. So I'm not really sure how that fits. But the Let's All Go to Hades section of the song, I really like the melody in that song a lot. This is a very cool song, easily my favorite song on the album. Come Heavy is next, and this one starts off with another slow intro. A lot of songs on here do that. It's got some cool drumming as it builds up to the main riff. And it's got another kind of cool guitar riff that goes on before they get to the actual verses of the song. I really like the verses to this track. It seems like another way of the band diversifying a little bit, but still staying within their sound. The guitars kind of move along to the vocals, and it seems like the guitar, bass, drums, and vocals all move together in sync really well in the verses. It's kind of groovy, but up tempo at the same time. I really like that. It builds towards this. Well, it hits this section that kind of reminds me of a build up to a chorus, but I guess it's kind of the chorus of this song. It's a little bit of a letdown. I really wish it had built towards a really awesome chorus. I think would have helped it. After that, the song doesn't really go anywhere too much. There are some melodic vocals. There are actually melodic vocals during the verses too, which are pretty cool. Also, there's some melody in the bridge, which is kind of cool. It's a decent track. The solo's decent, but it just doesn't feel like it goes really all the way like I'm wanting it to. If that makes any sense, it probably doesn't. I did enjoy this song a lot more on my last listen than I had the previous couple times I'd heard it. It's not a bad track. It's just, I feel like it could have been better. Red, White, and Blue is next, and it's another typical thrashy Overkill song. I don't like it as much as I do the first couple. I guess tracks 2 and 3 are the thrashy ones at the beginning of the album. I definitely like those two tracks better, but it is still an enjoyable track. And during the bridge of the song, they have this kind of cool melody where he's saying something, and then they go into this damn right part, which is kind of catchy. I do like that. The next two songs are kind of weird. You've got a song called The Wheel and then another one which is the title track, The Grinding Wheel. The Wheel is another fast-paced song. It has a little bit of a different feel to it though, and I like the melody in the chorus. Just sounds a little bit different for Overkill, which I like. Again, still staying within their style. And something about the bridge I kind of like too, where he talks about Mr. Wonderful or Mr. Fantastic or something like that. I forget now, but it's kind of amusing. Overall, a decent song, and I think an improvement over the previous two tracks. And the album closes with the title track, The Grinding Wheel. This song has this feel to it, which makes me think that it's an attempt at being a really awesome, epic album closer. But it only comes across as a decent, epic album closer. I definitely appreciate the effort in this song, and it is a decent track. I really wish it could have been better, though. I really wanted this song to be great. It starts off yet again with another slower intro that builds towards this section with this drum beat that kind of seems like something you would hear people march along to. Kind of just makes me think of like a marching section of some sort in what I don't know, but a marching section nonetheless. It builds towards a verse which is probably upper tempo for a lot of bands, but for Overkill it's kind of slower, a little bit groovier. I really like the presence that the drums have in this song. The guitar riff is nice, and I really like the vocals. He actually uses some melodic vocals in the verses to the song. It's pretty cool. The song, as it builds, though, gets slower, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as it kind of does this build up to the chorus. I think that could work, but then the chorus ends up still being kind of slow as well. And the chorus itself is decent enough, I guess. Certainly not enough to make me dislike the song, but I really wanted an epic, awesome, heavy chorus to just really drive the song home and really make it an epic album closer, but it never really quite does that. As the song gets to the bridge, it gets faster and heavier. I do like the change there, just to shift in melody, or shift in style, I should say. And shortly after that, it kind of stops and goes into this quiet section where there's just this bass line going, and that's really cool as it builds towards the outro to the song, which is kind of a slower section where he's kind of saying the grinding wheel a bit, and there's kind of some melodic vocals in the background, kind of a choir sort of thing. It's pretty cool as it fades out into this section that I don't know if that's a violin or a cello or some sort of classical instrument playing the same melody. I think that part's pretty cool. I think it lasts a little bit too long, but it is pretty cool. I do like that a lot. So ultimately, we get another Overkill album that does have a lot of the same old for the past several albums, but it also does have its moments where it does step out and be a little bit more unique while still staying within the Overkill style. And I do like that a lot. The songwriting is very solid. I like that they went a little more progressive with this album. And ultimately, it comes across as a solid album. I'm a bit torn as to where to rate it because there are things that I don't like and things that I would have liked to have seen done a little bit better. I guess that's a better way of saying it because it's not really anything I don't like so much as there's just a little bit more I wanted in certain sections. The second half is a bit of a drop off in quality. But ultimately, I still do really like this album, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. That might be a slight overrate. I'm not sure. I'll know more as I get to listen to this album more. I've heard it about 4 or 5 times now. I really like to listen to albums more than that and get to know them better before I review them, but if I didn't do this review now, it wasn't going to happen. By the lack of albums by bands I like that have come out so far, and this is the only one in almost 3 months. We're into mid-March now. I know Demon Hunter's coming out with an album towards the end of the month, which I'm looking forward to, although I hope it's heavier. I can already tell, though, this Overkill album is going to be in my top 5 favorite albums of the year. I can just already tell. This is a solid album, and if you're an Overkill fan and you haven't heard it yet, you definitely owe it to yourself to listen to it.